So there's a supplement that you can take right now that can give you better body, better brain, possibly make you get a girlfriend. People think it makes you lose your hair. Let's talk about creatine. So you put around 5 grams of creatine into water, then you drink it, and now it's inside of your stomach. So far, nothing crazy is happening. Creatine survives digestion, it moves into your intestine and gets absorbed, and then it enters your bloodstream. And this is where things get interesting, because creatine cannot just randomly enter your cells. So your cells have little transporters that tell creatine, you know what, come here buddy, go with me. So they grab it from the blood and pull it inside. Most of creatine has one destination. They are locked in. They want to go to the muscles. And that's around 95% of the creatine in your body. It's stored in skeletal muscle. The other approximately 5% is actually going another place. They are placed inside of your brain, for example. And I want you to keep your brain in mind because we are coming to that later. So once creatine enters your muscle cell, your body attaches something called a phosphate group to it, and creatine becomes phosphocreatine. Now I know that sounds complicated, but the idea is actually very simple. Phosphocreatine is biologically a tiny rechargeable battery, and this matters because every time your muscle contracts, you use something called ATP. ATP is your body's immediate energy source. So if you sprint, boom, ATP gets released. If you jump, ATP gets released. The problem is that your muscles don't store very much ATP. So during maximum effort, those stores can disappear extremely quickly. So your body has a backup system, phosphocreatine. When ATP loses energy, phosphocreatine can help rebuild it. So basically, you use your energy and creatine helps recharge it. So that's what creatine actually does. It does not magically create muscle. It does not change your testosterone. It is nothing close to performance-enhancing drugs. It basically just gives your muscle a slightly bigger emergency battery. And that tiny difference starts causing much bigger changes. Imagine you are doing a heavy set. Without creatine, maybe you can get 8 reps, 5 reps, and then you're done. But with slightly more phosphocreatine stored inside of your muscles, maybe you can squeeze out 1 more rep. Creatine can also make you recover faster for the next set. And this doesn't sound like much, like it helps you take 1 more rep or recover faster for the next set. But if this happens every single week, week after week after week, and month after month, eventually you will get stronger and you will build more muscle. And this is why creatine has been studied so much in sport. The effect is not magical. It is actually pretty boring, but it makes you perform slightly better. And over time, especially if you're serious about your training, slightly becomes meaningful. Okay, so let's talk about something that most people notice right away when they take creatine. They can see that the scale is going up and then they panic. They go, wait, did creatine make me fat? The answer is no. Creatine pulls water into your muscle cells. So when you start taking it, your muscle can store a little bit more water. That means that your body weight may increase. So it's totally normal. But the water is mostly being stored inside of the muscle, which is also why people sometimes think that they look a little bit fuller after starting creatine. So you're not suddenly gaining fat when taking creatine. Your muscles are basically holding more water. And honestly, I don't know about you, but if I want to look bigger, I don't think that that's a terrible side effect. So what about the kidneys? This is where we're going to talk about some of the biggest fear around creatine. People think that if I take this every day, am I destroying my kidneys? And I understand the confusion around this because the myth actually make a little bit of sense when you understand where it comes from. Some of the creatine in your body naturally breaks down into something called creatinine. And doctors measure creatinine in your blood to estimate how well your kidneys are functioning. So imagine this, you start taking creatine, you now have more creatine inside of your body. That can affect your creatinine level. And someone sees that blood test and thinks, oh my God, my kidneys are getting destroyed by creatine because my creatinine level went up. But those are not automatically the same thing. A higher creatinine measurement after taking creatine does not by itself mean that your kidneys have been damaged. And this is one of the first things you learn about when you have physiology in medical school. And decades of research in healthy people have not shown that creatine destroys healthy kidneys when used appropriately. So obviously, if you already have kidney disease, that's different. Talk to your doctor about it. But if you are completely healthy and your creatinine level increases, that is probably because of your creatine creatine levels. And also, creatine has one of the strongest safety records when it comes to sports supplements. Do you remember earlier in the video when I told you that most of creatine goes to your muscles and some of it goes to your brain? This is where creatine gets much more interesting, because your brain is incredibly energy hungry. Even though it's only a small part of your body weight, it constantly needs energy to keep neurons firing, to maintain ion gradients, to process inflammation, etc. And neurons use ATP as well, which means that the same creatine system that is helping your muscle recharge energy also exists inside of your brain. So researchers started asking a pretty obvious question. If more creatine can help muscles when energy demand gets high, could it also help your brain when its energy demand gets high? And this is where the studies started getting really interesting. In 2024, researchers took participants and they gave them a large single dose of creatine, and then they kept them awake for 21 hours, which sounds absolutely crazy. But then they repeatedly tested their cognitive performance. And after taking creatine while being sleep deprived, some participants performed way better on the cognitive tasks that they had to solve. Their memory held up a little bit better and their processing was a little bit better. And that effect appeared within hours and lasted for much of the testing period. And here's what caught my attention personally. The average participant was around 23 years old. So we're not talking about 80 years old people with a cognitive decline. We are talking about people who are basically our age. There has even been newer results in 2026 where studies used smaller dosage of creatine, and the results are encouraging. But these studies are still small, and the first study had only 15 people. So to zoom a little bit out and actually makes you understand what creatine is, it gets digested, goes to the blood, ends up stored in your muscles, and then your muscle turns it into phosphocreatine, and that helps rapidly regenerate ATP. So during hard exercise, when you can't do more, it can help you give you slightly more energy so you can get one more rep or perform the last rep a little bit better. And this can mean better performance. Over months, over years, this can make a big difference. Your muscle also hold a little bit more water, and this makes you gain a little bit of weight. Some creatine research on your brain also shows that if you're sleep deprived and you take a large amount of creatine, it can also help with your cognitive functions as well. So that was everything you should know about creatine. Thank you for watching. See you in another video.